Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Smoke-Filled Room. My name is Bill Giuliano. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Steve Winan. He has a very funny sign. And
Okay.
I think today's topic, we've decided we're going to recap the results from last week's New Hampshire primary.
Yes.
Going into now tomorrow is the South Carolina primary for the Republicans, because the Democrats don't matter. We're recording this on February 15th. It's a Monday evening, so hopefully this will be up by tomorrow morning, maybe Wednesday at the latest, but hopefully tomorrow. And so,
Word.
yeah, do you want to get started? What were your thoughts about New Hampshire?
So we had Trump winning 35%
Mhm.
of the vote, and Kasich came in second with 15, and Ted Cruz in third with 11. So for the GOP establishment, that's not good because
Mhm.
Trump is
Obviously not who we want.
not who they want,
Mhm.
and he won by so much that he has a lot of momentum, and especially shifting into the South, he does have a lot of support there. So,
Mhm. Which is
writing,
surprising.
yeah, I mean, well, this is because you know, and we'll talk about it in depth soon.
Mhm.
But people are so fed up with Washington that they just want someone to go in and
And
change
change
things.
everything.
Exactly. So,
Mhm.
for better or worse, they believe Trump is that kind of guy. So that's why he needs to lose. But he has a good shot at winning tomorrow. Um, but hopefully Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio can prevent that. And also, I think Kasich and whoever is left, Carson and all the
Mhm.
other nobodies, like they need to just get together and figure out who's going to drop out when,
How they're
because
going
this
to
is
do
going on
that.
long enough.
Yeah. Well, actually, before we get to them, I want to give a quick eulogy to our pal Rand Paul, who I know we were both supporting. The
Yes.
only libertarian actually running, the only one who seems to
Yes.
care about the size of government,
Yes.
constitutionality, things of that sort. Ted Cruz likes
Yes.
to paint himself as that sort of guy, but he's
But he's
not.
not at all.
Marco Rubio honestly doesn't even try to paint himself like that.
No. Yeah. So I kind of respect that because at least he's being truthful.
Exactly. But
You know.
Ted's a phony.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
my general impression of Ted Cruz, that he's a
Yeah.
phony. That
Yeah.
he's, quite frankly, I as much as I was behind Rand Paul for his idealism, I think that if you want a strong leader that's not necessarily who you want, I think that it's like Chris Christie was pointing out in not the most recent Republican debate, but the one before that, at pretty much every debate prior to that. We don't want another first-term senator as president. We've had 8 years
Yeah.
of that. It hasn't been
Yes.
what we hoped, to say the least.
It
And
has not been particularly good
no, it hasn't
at
gone
all.
extremely well, we'll say.
Yeah.
So I think going into this election, I think we definitely want someone who's more. You want a Republican, not you want a Republican. I mean, I know you do. I'm sure
Right.
a lot of other people do as well. But you want a governor. You want someone who has executive experience. You want someone who
Right.
has leadership abilities.
Decision making.
Decision-making skills, exactly. Who has been
Yeah.
in that sort of position and who can, you know, and not that Chris Christie was that guy, that's for sure. I think me and
Right.
you are both native New Jerseyans. We know that Chris Christie is not that guy.
Not that guy.
But
Nope.
it's
But he
actually,
he has a good point.
he does have a good point. It's actually funny. As much as I know very much about Chris Christie, and I know that I don't like him, but when I watch him in debates, I can't help but like him. Like I like the
Yes.
things he says in debates. I just wish, and I
He
honestly don't
actually
even
did
think.
those things.
Well, it's not even that. I just think that he's doing those things, but he's doing a lot of other shady stuff that we don't really like. Bridgegate,
Yeah.
things.
That's a good point.
So like things like that, like there's the whole thing with Sandy, and in some ways he handled the immediate. When it came to the catastrophe that was Hurricane Sandy, he handled the immediate aftermath of it extremely well, as far as like making sure everyone was safe, making sure everyone had food and water, things like that. He did fairly well with that sort of thing. But then came the rebuilding part, which was not his forte, we'll say.
Yeah.
There's And no one can prove this, of course, but we're quite sure that there's still millions, if not billions, of dollars that are missing for Sandy funds. We don't know where they ended up.
Yeah.
Donors' pockets.
Yeah, probably.
Most likely. So those are my thoughts on Chris Christie. But as I look at the New York Times website, New York Times actually has a great little page on their website where they tell you who is running for each party and who is not running and who dropped out. So as of you should check it out. I'll send you
that's
the link.
handy.
I'll put the link in the description. But
very cool.
As of the moment, obviously the Democrats, it says for the Democrats we have 2 who are not running, Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. 4 who dropped out, Lincoln Chafee, Larry Lessig, Martin O'Malley, and Jim Webb. And then the only 2 left running are Clinton and Sanders, obviously. They're the only ones left for the Democrats.
Right.
For the Republicans, so far we have that dropped out, beginning with Scott Walker, Rick Santorum, Rick Perry, Rand Paul, George Pataki, Bobby Jindal, Mike Huckabee, Lindsey Graham. And most recently, Jim Gilmore only dropped out like 2 days ago. Can you believe that?
Dude.
I can't believe he's been in this long. So Jim Gilmore, and then also Carly Fiorina and Chris Christie are the most recent dropouts.
Yeah.
So we started with our original Republicans of 16 or 17 to begin with, and we're now down to the final 6, which is Jeb Bush, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, John Kasich, Marco Rubio, and the Donald, Mr. Trump.
Yo. Yay.
Yay.
What a stellar lineup.
Not good prospects.
No.
This is not the kind of lineup we would hope for,
Yeah, my history professor today, we were talking about the difference between the North and the South in the lead up to the Civil War in terms of their means of production and consumer choice theory and all this stuff. And then he's like, with the election this year, we like to think that we have a choice, but there are no choices that anyone who has a rational intelligence wants to make.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a choice, but it's none of the choices that we want.
Yeah.
And that's true everywhere, and on both sides, because there's no way you can be a rational human being and support Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders.
No. Honestly,
and actually think that they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
The only people that I look up here and I say, yes, you would make a good president are, quite honestly, well, let's go down the line. I think I'm going to put the Democrats to the side for now. But just looking at these 6. So first you have Donald, you have Rubio, Kasich, Cruz, Carson, and Bush. Looking at these 6, the only people that I say, you know what, I would like you as my president, John Kasich. He's the only one up there that I could say, you know what, I could get behind you.
Right.
Of these 6 that are left. And then there's also, I put, there's 2 more categories. There's the category of, I'm not totally behind you, but I don't think that your 4 years in office would be absolutely horrible, and that's where Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio go. Right. And then there's the category of we absolutely cannot have you as our president, and that's
everybody else.
Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump go. We cannot allow those people to be our commanders in chief.
Yes.
So that's my thought on those 6.
I agree.
What's interesting is looking at these 6. I'm going to look at their poll numbers right now. You have Trump, who got 35% in New Hampshire, which is a crazy high amount.
Yes.
And then, especially compared to everyone else, poor Jim Gilmore only got 0.0%.
Oh, that poor guy.
I'm surprised he stayed in it this long. I'm surprised he even made it to Iowa and never went to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But then, the most surprising thing looking at this is, well, there's actually 2 things that really surprised me. One, it's the second place finish of John Kasich.
Right.
And I'm not sure, he had a good debate night last week right before New Hampshire. It wasn't anything stellar. It wasn't out of this world good, but it was good. He did all right. But not good enough that those numbers are still surprising, and he did only get 15% of the vote, 15.8, so round that up to 16. but that's still so like it's second place, but it's not a substantial number. But second place is still very
It's still pretty
impressive.
good,
I mean,
considering he didn't do well in Iowa.
exactly. But do you know what he placed in Iowa? He didn't get
Probably
top
out of it.
five.
No, definitely not.
Top five in Iowa, if I remember correctly, it should have been. It was Ted Cruz. It was Trump. It was probably Cruz,
Rubio
Trump,
was third.
Rubio, and then
I think it was Ben Carson was
Ben
fourth,
Carson, and then it was Rand, and then it was Jeb.
and then it was John, I think.
No, then it was Jeb. I thought Jeb did better
Really?
than.
Oh yeah.
Did he? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm.
he spent
Excuse
like
me.
$2,000 per vote or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not looking at the numbers right now, but
Oh, I got it. John Kasich finished eighth.
eighth. Who else is he behind?
Carly Fiorina, Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and Cruz.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's that's crazy for him. And I know that from what I've been hearing and from my research, I think that part of the reason that Kasich did so well is because he invested a lot of time into New Hampshire. He had a ton of town halls there.
Yes.
Yeah. So he
did.
So that's certainly part of the reflection. But I think also you have basically three types of candidates that are left. You have the anti-establishment people. That would be Trump, Carson, and to a lesser extent Cruz.
Right.
And then you have your young senator, which is Rubio and also Cruz. Cruz falls into both categories. And you have your strong governor type. And that's obviously Kasich and Bush.
Right.
And so I think that if you're looking at those three people, or those three groups I should say, you're gonna, if you want like that sort of executive leadership, if you want that sort of strong authority, but has experience, has that sort of constitutionality. I mean, the obvious pick is Kasich over Jeb Bush.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
I feel so bad for Jeb Bush. I feel like he tries so hard. He's trying so hard, man. It's just not his year. I don't think it'll ever be his year. His brother
No,
kind
it's
of
not
ruined
his
that.
time. It's never going to be his time. If it was the 1990s, he would be great.
Yeah, he would be exactly who you want in the 90s.
Yeah,
because
it's not
you know what, we had his father in the 90s,
and he was basically
80s,
decent.
Late 80s.
Yeah.
I think George H.W. George Bush Sr. was a great president. I think he was actually better than Reagan.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
you can make that case. Sure.
As far as I mean, obviously my focus and my main interest is foreign policy. I think that the foreign policy of H.W. was incredible. He was a great foreign policy president.
Yeah.
Better certainly than his son. That was
his son.
Nothing short of disastrous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think poor Jeb, he's just not gonna, and he spends all his time attacking Trump, but I'm not sure that Trump is the person he should be going after.
Yeah, true.
Those are just my thoughts.
I mean, you just keep giving him attention, then he's just never gonna. He's just. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this guy.
With Trump, you mean?
With Trump, yeah. Because, if you attack him, he gets more support. If you let him go and do his own thing, he gets more support. There's no... Yeah. So, who do we think will win tomorrow?
Well, that's the interesting part. So, I have several thoughts. I think that Kasich is going to do well again, riding off of, being the opposite of Jeb Bush. Not the opposite, but sort of that,
a better version.
Yes, a better version of Jeb. I think that Ben Carson is going to do well because he has the strongest evangelical base of all the candidates.
Right.
So I think he's going to do fairly well in a state like South Carolina.
Right.
I think Rubio is going to do poorly again.
Okay.
I think Trump is going to do fairly well. I don't know if he's going to get first again, but I think he's going to do
He's going to do well enough to stay where he is.
For sure. And I think Jeb Bush is going to do poorly yet again. But it doesn't matter how poorly he does. He's in this for the long run. And then the last one is Cruz. I'm not sure what to make of Ted Cruz. I'm not sure how he's going to do in South Carolina.
I mean, he could win. I mean,
he could.
He definitely could win.
I think he's definitely going to do better than Ben Carson and John Kasich.
Right.
Even though I think that those two get substantial votes, but I don't think they're going to come nearly as close to Cruz.
I think no matter who comes in first, it's going to be the top three. Whoever it is just going to be too close to say, oh, this person needs to drop out or this person's losing steam, because the South Carolina appeals too broadly to all of the ways that they appeal to voters. So
Yeah. Well, so that's the problem. Like Trump appeals to the bomb throwers, Cruz appeals to the bomb throwers who think they're right.
right,
Carson appeals to the evangelicals, um, and then I think Rubio appeals to
the normal Republicans and the bomb throwers.
Yes, exactly. The standard Republican and the bomb throwers. And I think that Kasich and Bush both appeal to the moderate
Right,
Republicans, of
right.
which there
Who
are
don't
far
show
too
up in
few.
primaries.
Exactly, because they're
Yeah.
usually registered as independents.
Right.
It's the same thing on the Democratic side. So you get your moderates who never show up to primaries because they're not registered, and that's the problem. I feel like that's the problem with the primary system in general, in that it forces you to get people who either do not fully support your party coming out there if you have it open so everyone can vote in the primary. And that also has its good and bad things. It allows a more moderate representation, a more actual representation of what people are believing. But it also opens the door. I think this is over exaggerated in the media. It opens the door to, I guess we'll call it sabotage by one party on another. Because if anyone can vote in the election, you might as well just go vote for the Democrats and have the loser Democrat win, or vice versa.
Makes sense. Yeah, but I think having independents being able to vote in if every primary was open and then you could have independents vote in every primary, I think that would probably balance any kind of
sabotage
out.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's probably the better way to do it. But alas, you need to be registered in most states. Yeah. Certainly in our home state.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad.
Yeah.
So, and then how do we think, looking ahead to Nevada, I'm pretty sure Nevada's in about a week or so?
Yeah, I think it's next week.
Next week?
I'm pretty sure it's next week, yeah.
Okay, so how do you think what do you think is going to happen over there with the Democrats? Bernie versus Hillary.
So tomorrow for South Carolina, we know Hillary's going to win.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much guaranteed.
Because it's the South, and the Democrats in the South don't like Sanders, so she's going to win.
Which doesn't really matter, because it's South Carolina
Exactly.
It's a very red state voting blue, and that's just not going to matter in the end very much.
Yep.
Nevada is a different scenario. I think before we do that, though, we should talk about the overthrow of Hillary in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Especially after very narrowly beating Bernie Sanders in Iowa, she now goes into New Hampshire, and I shouldn't say get her butt kicked, but I mean the vote is 60,
she got crushed.
It's 60% for Sanders and 38% for Hillary, with about 2% other.
Yeah.
I don't know if those numbers add up correctly. I'm not good at math.
New Hampshire's very. Their conservatives are very libertarian and their liberals are very socialist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wasn't surprised that Sanders won. And I don't think he was either, and I don't think Hillary was either. Because
I think it surprised Hillary. I think it was a blow to her.
Definitely, I would say so. But I think the Clintons probably prepared for this.
Yeah, as they should have.
I think, right, because I mean he's from that area, and he appeals to them more than she does. So I mean, it's kind of I think it's a foregone conclusion that he was going to win, but not by this much.
Yes,
she should have had a better ground game. Maybe she did have a good ground game, and it didn't matter. But
I didn't do the research on that.
So, I mean, it's good for Bernie Sanders that he won so decisively, but he's going to get crushed tomorrow. Then Nevada
South Carolina doesn't matter. So this...
Right. Yeah. So, and then Nevada is a blue-ish state, but it's more purple.
Yes. It has more or less the same thing going as New Hampshire does. I think,
exactly.
yeah, it's blue, but it's rural.
Right.
It's very sort of wild west,
And I
plus
think
Las Vegas.
Nevada went for Obama, right?
I do not. I would
2012?
assume so. I do
I'm
not know
pretty
off the
sure
top of
they
my
did.
head. I would. Yeah, I would think
So,
so.
for me. I mean, Nevada for the Democrats could go either way.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be like Iowa, where it's like 49-47, with
Yeah,
like
roughly.
2% other.
Like close. You think? You think it's gonna be very
Yeah,
close?
I think it's going to be pretty close.
Closer than New
I think the
Hampshire.
rest, yeah, and I think the rest of their primaries are going to be very close.
Okay.
Just the way the demographics are and everything. I mean,
Hmm.
because Bernie Sanders is a populist and he lucked out because New Hampshire is a very populous state.
Yes,
But there aren't a lot of states that are like New
for sure.
Hampshire. So,
So thinking long term, who do you think is going to be the Democratic nominee?
um,
Hillary or the Byrne?
I mean, it would probably. I'm just gonna assume because of establishment party politics and the amount of money she has, it's gonna be Hillary in the end.
I also am of that opinion that it's going to be Hillary, though it's not the outcome I'm hoping for.
Right. And Harry Reid said that the possibility of having a brokered convention is a real possibility. If they would actually do that, it'd be kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Um,
What exactly
but
do you mean by a brokered convention?
so
How
that
would that happen?
means that they would have more than one. You know how basically you decide who the nominee is by like June, and then the convention is just like a coronation.
Yes.
So that instead of having that, they would have both of them at the convention, and then
To
the
and decide at the convention who would be
exactly. Yep.
interesting.
Yeah.
That would
So
be
I
extremely
mean,
different.
that would be a possibility, but the last time they tried that was 1968, and that was an absolute disaster for them. So,
That was the year
um,
Nixon got elected, correct?
yes, yeah,
Yes.
and that was the year, the summer of the race riots, and
Yes.
Chicago. They had it in Chicago, which was the stupidest idea ever,
Hmm.
and it was insane. And oh, so will they have a brokered convention? Maybe. Because Bernie Sanders definitely has the popular support.
He definitely has the support, especially among people our age. Where you
Right.
get older, more blue dog Democrats voting for Hillary. You don't really see that among people our age. I don't know. I can name very few, if any, people our age, millennial type people, who are voting for Hillary.
Well,
I think
Rutgers for Hillary is gigantic.
really. See, I
It's
don't.
huge.
We don't really have big, because Rutgers is obviously much more enormous than Scranton is, but we
That
don't
is
really
a good
have
point.
any big, like student organizations supporting individual candidates. We have a college Democrats and a college Republicans, but that's about it. And I am a member of neither, so I can't tell you who they are backing, if they
Right.
as a group are backing anyone. But I mean, I'm sure Hillary does have supporters our age. I just think Bernie certainly has more appeal to me, and I think this is kind of where the dichotomy of Bernie and Trump is. In that
Hmm.
we were texting the other day, discussing how similar the two of them are, and you can go into more detail about that. But what's interesting about it is that despite their similarities, I like Bernie Sanders and I do not like Donald Trump.
Right.
So why
Because
don't you
Trump
go
is
into more detail about the similarities between the two of them?
sure. So something that I've been saying for a few months is that um, Trump and Sanders are the same person, and what I mean by that is they're both anti-establishment populists for two different sides of the spectrum. And um, so just to pull from this article from the Daily Wire, written by Ben Shapiro, he takes some sound bites of different Trump speeches and Sanders speeches to show how similar they are.
Mm-hmm. Could you give an
And
example?
so, yeah, so Trump's victory speech from New Hampshire, he says, it's special interest money, and this is on both sides. This is on the Republican side, the Democrat side, money just pouring into commercials. These are special interest folks. These are lobbyists. These are people that don't necessarily love our country. They don't have the best interests of the country at heart. So that was Trump. And then this is Sanders from his victory speech the same night. We have sent a message that will echo from Wall Street to Washington, from Maine to California, and that is that the government of our great country belongs to all of the people and not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors and their super PACs. So they're both targeting special interest money.
Which, quite
In
honestly,
similar
is a
ways.
target that needs
Is
to
it
be attacked.
exactly? So they both agree on that. And then they are also on the same page on foreign trade, which is another thing that I've been saying for a long time. And they both see free trade as a zero-sum game that we are losing. So Sanders described trade with China as catastrophic. Trump does the same thing, except he just says the word China and everyone claps. And then also a few days before New Hampshire, Trump admitted that he and Sanders agreed on this, and he says the one thing we very much agree on is trade. We both agree that we're getting ripped off by China, by Japan, by Mexico, everyone we do business with. So they both, even Trump recognizes that the two of them are the exact same on the issue of trade.
He
Okay?
actually said that in the debate Saturday night. Last
Yes,
Saturday.
exactly. And both Trump and Sanders want to do away with Obamacare in favor of a more universal system.
Which is
So I'm
also
going to
probably
read.
a good idea.
I'm going to read. I'm going to read Trump. Actually, no, I lied. I'm going to read Sanders and I'm going to read Trump. Sanders says that 29 million Americans should not remain uninsured, and even greater numbers should remain underinsured with large deductibles and co-payments. We should not be paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs at a time. That is an obscenity, and let me tell you something. When we make it to the White House, the pharmaceutical industry will not continue to rip off the American people. So that was Sanders. Trump says that he vows that he will stop the insurance companies getting rich on Obamacare and ensure that we're going to take care of the people on the street dying. So he doesn't say that he's going to let the free markets take care of the people on the street dying. And he's also said that in the debate last time that he said getting rid of Obamacare is not a good idea.
Trump said that?
Yeah, Trump said that. Okay, so they both agree with that. And Trump also said last year, I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. And Bernie Sanders said in his victory speech, we will not allow huge tax breaks for billionaires. We will not allow huge cuts to Social Security, veterans' needs, Medicare, Medicaid, and education. So they're both agreed on that. And while Trump, Trump has run on the basis of strict illegal immigration policy, that they're coming over here and they're taking our jobs and they're taking our money and they're taking our welfare.
Tough rhetoric against foreigners.
Right.
Is the best way to describe that.
Sanders historically has also been saying similar things. And he does believe that illegal immigration does drive down American wages. And he says, bring in all kinds of people, work for $2 or $3 an hour. That would be great for them. Real immigration reform puts the needs of working people first, not wealthy globe-trotting donors. So that's if you replace wealthy globe-trotting donors with dirty Mexican rapists, that would be Trump.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And on foreign policy,
Sanders is a lot more delicate with his positions, we'll say.
Right. Yes. And that's why people hate Trump and they don't hate Sanders.
Yes, because Sanders isn't I think we can all agree that Trump is very clearly a racist.
Right.
I don't think... Interesting.
Essentially, what we have laid out is that they are very similar on some very key issues. And then this article goes into explaining how Trump and Sanders are both rising in popularity because neither of them talk about the proper role of government. Neither of them explicitly lay out this is what government's supposed to do and not do. They just talk about how they're going to increase its power to use it for their own purposes to solve their ideological problems.
Yes, if I can interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead, go for it.
I've always kind of noticed that about Trump in pretty much everything he says, but it never clicked for me with that about Sanders. So after watching Thursday night's debate between him and Hillary, It's absolutely correct. He doesn't talk at all about the role of government, and Hillary does to an extent. I think she has
Yeah,
a much
right,
clearer idea of the role of government and the role of the executive than Bernie does.
right. And to that end, um, this is what their supporters want. Trump supporters feel like Trump just wins and he will win and he's going to do what it takes to win, and whether or not that means shredding the Constitution or not, they're not interested.
Mhm.
Um, because he's going to do what it takes to kick out all the evil Mexicans and do what it takes to get tough on China and yada yada yada. And then on the
Mhm.
same flip of the coin, Bernie Sanders is going to do what it takes to fix income inequality and do what it takes to, solve whatever liberal pipe dream that they come up with. And even though they're both pandering to two different sets of issues, their method is the same.
Mhm.
For solving the problems, especially, their methods are going to be the same. Their supporters think that it takes a power broker to stop the power brokers, right?
Yes, you need
But
a tough
that's
guy to defeat the tough guys.
right, but that never works. When has that
Mhm.
worked?
Never.
Right? Exactly.
The only
You
thing
just get
stopping a
more
bad guy with a
corruption.
gun is a good guy with a gun.
Right. And yeah. And so you could say that if you give Trump like the ring of power, right, from Lord of the
Yes.
Rings, let's say,
Mhm.
uh he's not going to destroy it, and he's going to use it, and he might use it for some good things, but he's also going to use it for some bad things.
Yes, and
And no one
along the
cares about the
way,
bad things.
exactly, and along the way, even if he does use it for mostly good things, the idea of just using the ring of power to achieve it is wrong.
Right.
Like you
Exactly.
don't do. I'm going to go away from the Lord of the Rings analogy here, but you don't break the Constitution in order to fix America's problems. The Constitution is what America is. That is the founding document of our nation. That is our core.
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
just break. You can't just disregard the Constitution to fix an immediate problem. This is my
Yes.
opposition to the Patriot Act,
Yes.
but
Yes.
the Patriot Act is definitely a topic for another day.
Yes. Ron Swanson is laughing heartily somewhere. Anyway,
Yes.
okay, so that's Trump, and then Sanders, he also objects. Wow, he he objects to corrupt government like Trump does, but Sanders and his supporters think that generally more government is the solution, and so does Trump. He's a fascist, just nobody knows that yet, or nobody cares.
A
Um,
little of both.
so while like Trump supporters think he's some kind of Mussolini-esque kind of person. Not saying he's gonna, you know, get black shirt gangs together and create literally
Yeah.
fascism
I,
here, but like he's got his problems. And then also, Sanders people want like a Hugo Chavez type to ride in and use the power of government to punish the enemies of liberalism and socialism and all that stuff. And you know, that's nice, but you can't just break the law and break precedents and break the Constitution to do that.
mhm.
And so they think the government is bought and paid for by outside parties, which in large part it is, but having a honest dictator to clean house doesn't fix it.
Exactly. It doesn't. You're not solving anything. You're just making the problem worse. You're making quick fixes. It's like treating the symptoms instead of going after the illness itself.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what it is, and it's only going to make it worse. It's only going to prolong the life of the disease.
exactly.
So,
Um,
in
Go
one
ahead, go
in
for it.
one aspect, well, I actually have two thoughts. So, in one aspect, I feel like Sanders is obviously the better pick. I definitely want Sanders over Trump because I feel like Sanders at least. Well, I want to say this about both of them. I feel like they both genuinely believe in what they're saying, and they are really. And I believe that not only do they genuinely believe what they're saying, but they really are out to help the American people. I don't feel
Right.
like either of them is self-interested to a great extent, because they both are, obviously. I don't think that, but I think that generally they're doing this because they see problems with America and they want to fix them. So I have to commend them for that. That said, I think Sanders is clearly the pick over Trump because Trump he's a bomb thrower. That's who his supporters are. They're people who just want to mess with the system, you know?
Right.
And that's not Like, I'm sorry, but building a wall across the Mexican border is not going to solve your problem, especially when 40% of immigration comes over airplanes. You know,
Right.
banning all Muslims from entering the United States is a gross violation of
Of
First Amendment
everything.
rights, of just one general international precedence, but also just our First Amendment rights. You know, we don't discriminate against people based on religion. You can't just say all Muslims are not allowed in for a temporary time period. You know, you can't have Muslims register. That's not okay. You
Right.
know, and so I think that Trump is much more dangerous. And I want to make the comparison. So this is going to be two extremes, obviously. So you have Bernie, who proudly proclaims himself a socialist, and then you have Trump, who is a fascist in all but name. And when you take those two, the obvious comparisons are you have, if you want to take them to their absolute extremes, you have Adolf Hitler and you have Joseph Stalin. Like those are the end results of them. I think that those are obvious over exaggerations. That's the word. They're obvious over exaggerations of the two of them. Bernie is not Joseph Stalin very clearly, and I also believe, despite his rhetoric, that Trump is not Adolf Hitler. I think a more apt comparison would be. I think Trump is less. I think Trump is actually less mild than Francisco Franco of Spain. So I feel like somewhere between Franco and Mussolini is where you find Trump. You know, but he's not at Hitler level. You know, he's very clearly a fascist in ideology, and I think as far as like race issues go, from what I know, Mussolini didn't really have any quarrels with any other races. You know, he was based on Italian nationalism and around the ethnicity of Italians. You know, I think that if Mussolini rises to power by himself, he's not killing that millions of Jews. You know.
No, and the only reason why he did is because Hitler became the senior partner of the Axis, and then it was okay. I got to do this, or else we're fucked. So.
Exactly, and he really just I'll edit that part out.
Ew.
There you go. But yeah, he really just. And there's evidence even suggesting that Mussolini was not in favor of the Holocaust, did not want to kill all of these Jews, and that it was really just like you have to. He was very into his Italian nationalism and embraced Italians. He even actually, prior to the beginning of the Holocaust itself, he embraced the Jews in Italy as also Italians, you know? Like, being a Catholic was not what made you Italian. Living in Italy is what made you Italian. So even those people who did not practice Catholicism were considered part of his. Like, you could just as easily be considered an Italian, whether you were Catholic or not.
Right.
So I think as far as that goes, Trump is actually a little more further to the right than Mussolini was. However, I think his actual fascist ideology based in ethnic militarism is not as far to the right as Mussolini is, though further to the right than Franco.
Right.
That's my fascist opinion on Trump. As far as Bernie goes, I've been trying to find a good example of like who to compare him to, and he's obviously not at the level of Joseph Stalin or Mao in China. Not even. I feel like Hugo Chavez and Ho Chi Minh are better comparisons, but still not nearly. Those two are obviously much worse than Bernie is. You know? I can't think off the top of my head of a great historical
you
figure
could just
to
compare him to like any run-of-the-mill democratic socialist in continental Europe.
Yeah, I think honestly that's the best comparison. You know, it's like Marco Rubio said. He would make a great president of Sweden, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
you know?
But not us.
Exactly, not us. So that's where, because we are not Sweden. I think that's where I stand with the two of them, Trump and Sanders.
And I also just want to throw in real quick that Bernie Sanders was chairman of the VA committee in the Senate for 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, and these were the 2 years where the VA problems got exponentially worse.
Oh, really?
And no one has called him out on that yet.
Interesting.
And it really bothers me.
Especially for all his talk of taking care of the veterans, which if you look at Republican history, they certainly do not do.
They don't do that either.
No, they don't. There was that whole scandal several years ago where, what's his name? Jon Stewart essentially guilted the Republicans into passing comprehensive VA reform. You know, he guilted the Republican-controlled Congress. And, like, for Jon Stewart to be very clearly someone on the left who embraces his being on the left, and as someone on TV who has that sort of position, that's very admirable. He did the same thing years before that with 9/11 reform, or for providing aid to 9/11
Right, first
first
responders and
responders.
families, yeah.
Yeah, and that's again something that one of the few times that Republicans actually try to embrace their conservatism of not spending too much money, happens to be on the wrong things. I think, but
yeah,
I think our 9/11 first responders and our veterans is where we might want to splurge a little bit with our government funds. But that's just me.
Right, but so nobody's calling him on this yet, and I recognize that the GOP has also messed up the VA, and that's fine, and you can call them out on that. That's totally fine. But I'm pretty sure out of Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Bernie Sanders, Cruz is on the House Armed Services Committee, which is completely different. It has nothing to do with the VA.
Yeah.
And Marco Rubio is on the Foreign Relations Committee, which has nothing to do with the VA. So Bernie Sanders was in a position for 2 years to do something about the VA, and he did nothing.
And do you think that
these were the 2 years where the scandal was just getting worse?
Yes. I would have to do more research into the actual, the statistics of what happened to the VA during that time period to really come up with a comprehensive response. Just based off rhetoric alone, it seems like everyone is pro-military veteran. You can't be against military veterans. One, just as a presidential candidate, but also just as
a human being,
as a nice person. You got to support the vets. I think that overall, Bernie would probably be the best for the veterans as far as
not getting involved in more wars.
Yes, not getting involved in more wars, and also I think in general healthcare reform. I think when you talk about general healthcare reform in this country, if you want to slowly get to the point where we provide a more European example of universal healthcare. I think that starts with our veterans and our armed servicemen and women. I think it starts with saying, you have served our country, you have fought for us, you deserve free healthcare, and then we slowly expand outward. I think you can't just all in one sum give free healthcare to 320 million people. But I think it has to start somewhere if we are going down that road, which many people argue we shouldn't. But if we are going to, it should start with our veterans.
Right. But if the government can't have its own single-payer system function for less than 1 million people, how are you going to get single-payer to work for 330? You know what I mean?
We're going to do what Bernie says, and we're going to tear up Obamacare.
Yeah, that's a great plan.
We're going to start from scratch.
That's a great plan.
Can't be much worse.
I think we can all agree that Obamacare has some good aspects,
for prescription
the prescription drugs, and also I can't think of the pre-existing conditions.
Yes, I think it's done wonders. Specifically for prescription drugs have gone tremendously down thanks to Obamacare.
Right.
For people under that.
I think the net gain in people being insured is 3 million, but that's because 6 million gained insurance, but 3 million lost insurance.
Yeah.
So, that's a huge trade-off. That's literally a 2-for-1. That's insane.
Which is a huge number.
And obviously, if a private company did that and messed up the market that badly, they'd be out of business, and the CEO would probably be in jail.
Well, you don't know after 2008 if the CEO would actually be in jail.
He'd be in jail, right? Well, the Enron guys went to jail.
Yes, I think Enron's more of the exception to the rule.
Sure.
It seems after our financial crisis.
So, we should definitely do another segment / entire show on healthcare reform.
Yeah. I may cut this whole segment out. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. No,
it's kind of off topic, but it's also interesting. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But there was also, if we don't mind, did you have more to say on Bernie and Trump?
No, go for it.
Okay.
Bernie and Trump are the same person. Don't vote for them. They're evil. End of story.
Excellent. If we could actually for a moment go back to Marco Rubio, because I think it would be amiss to not talk about his abysmal debate performance of the other night. Now, I didn't watch the most recent debate, which was today's Monday, Saturday's debate, this most recent Saturday. I did watch the debate prior to that, the Saturday before, and oh my God, Marco Rubio just so terrible. Like he starts off. This all happens literally within the first 10 minutes of the debate starting, and Marco Rubio is asked a question, answers it in like 3 words, and then says, "But I want to dispel this myth that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing." And then he gets asked the question again gives a 3-word answer that may or may not actually answer it, and talks about how Obama knows exactly what he's doing. Then they go to Chris Christie, who calls Rubio out on having this like 30-second speech memorized about whatever. And then in Rubio's rebuttal, he says, "But Obama knows exactly what he's doing. Let's dispel this myth that Obama doesn't know what he's doing." And he repeats it a 3rd time. And then Christie goes, "You see, there it is, the exact same 30 seconds. And Rubio then repeats it a 4th time.
Yeah, I know.
And then the day after, he's doing an interview with George Stephanopoulos, where George Stephanopoulos asks him about this. And he says, "You were accused of having perhaps a little speech memorized word for word, and then to answer against that, you actually repeated the same 30-second speech." And then Marco Rubio goes, "Well, it is what I believe. I believe that President Obama knows exactly what he's doing. We have to dispel this myth that he doesn't know what he's doing. And I will keep saying it because it is what I believe." And it's like, dude, it's not helping you. You gotta... One, I don't even think that most people agree with you. Most of the people that you're campaigning to, anyway, agree with you. I happen to agree with him. I think Obama does know what he's doing, and I think that for a lot of people who would support Marco Rubio, the obvious answer is Obama's an idiot and is evil and is trying to ruin the country. I don't think that's the case either.
Well, he's not an idiot.
No, he's not an idiot by any means.
He's not evil, but he just has a different vision of the country that most people have.
I think that's the core of this whole debate. You want to say like, "Oh, Hillary Clinton is evil, Bernie Sanders is evil, Donald Trump is evil, Marco Rubio is evil."
Donald Trump is pretty evil.
Donald Trump is a bad guy. We're not going to pretend that Donald Trump is a good man, but he's at the core of it. None of these people are out specifically to destroy America, and believe me, I know people who honestly think that Obama's just some crazy Muslim who wants to destroy America while at the same time being a progressive liberal. And so just the concept of Obama being a radical jihadist and a progressive liberal, the two ideas are completely opposite. They do not mesh even a little bit. But anyway, so those people are dumb. But I think that we have to all recognize that we have differences and disagreements on how we think the country should run and what the future for our country is and how exactly to do that. But we have to acknowledge the fact that no one is out to destroy America. None of these elected officials are out trying to make the world a worse place or trying to weaken America. They just have disagreements with you on how to make America better. That's all that it is. And once we accept that, everything will go a little bit smoother, I think.
But yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think now would probably be a good time to talk about how Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Scalia,
I think
they
this
were
is a perfect,
friends.
Transfer into that.
Yeah.
So yes, this is probably a good time to talk about the fact that over this weekend, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away, age 79, I believe.
Very sad.
He's an old
79,
timer.
yes.
79. Yeah, he's an old timer. It's too bad.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 84.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's some old people on that Supreme Court.
Yeah, dude.
Clarence Thomas is probably up there too. Antonin Scalia passed away. Very sad.
Very sad.
And now we have to pick a new Supreme Court justice.
Yes. But hold on, before we get to that,
yes,
I just want to say that there's a excellent article from The Hill that Billy will put in the description that shows not only Ruth Bader Ginsburg but also Anthony Kennedy and some of the other justices express how, like, even though they all vehemently disagreed on certain things, they were all friends and they all enjoyed working together. And even though they were conservative and liberal, that they were able to get along and respect each other. And I think that's really important for the country going forward because everyone's becoming polarized and we're forgetting that, even though someone disagrees with you, that doesn't mean that they're not human and they don't deserve your respect and vice versa.
Exactly.
Like when I see people on Facebook actually expressing joy at the death of a person, that's disgusting.
I have not been on Facebook today, so I haven't actually seen that. But
Don't go
that's
on the
not.
internet. Stay away from the internet. It's
The
a
internet
terrible
is a
place.
bad place. Bad
It's a bad
internet.
place.
It's only where we post these videos.
Exactly. So everyone go on the internet to watch this and then get off the
And
internet.
that's it. Like, you can click on
That's it.
YouTube. You can click on the
Click
little
on,
subscription thing on your side. If you
yes.
haven't done that yet to subscribe to us, then you should go search our
Go do
channel,
that.
subscribe, and then click on this video. Watch it for however
Watch it,
long it is up for.
and then get off the internet.
Yes, then and then
Go
probably destroy your
outside.
laptop.
Yes.
Go outside tomorrow. There's new fallen
Go
snow. You can go
get
sledding.
some air. Yeah, exactly.
Build a
Walk your
snowman.
dog. Go to a protest. File taxes. Do something.
But just
Anyway.
don't do the internet.
So you have H&R Block. That's your fault. Anyway.
Anyway.
So yes, now that he's dead, there's a vacancy, and it needs to be filled.
Yes.
And this is an election year, so this is a big deal.
Yes,
and also
it is.
because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is very old, and who's the other? It's Thomas, Alito, Roberts, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and there's two more.
I do not know off the top of my head. Let me find out.
Is David Souter one?
We're gonna find out in a second. Supreme Court Justices. The current Supreme Court is Clarence Thomas, not Antonin Scalia. This SupremeCourtHistory.com has not been updated yet. Clarence Thomas, John Roberts, Anthony Kennedy, Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
Stephen Breyer,
Sonia Sotomayor, Stephen Breyer, Sam Alito, and Elena Kagan.
Right. So I mean, look at how old, like, Stephen Breyer is 77. Oh, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 82.
Yeah, so she's the oldest one, I think.
Yeah, Anthony
check on
Kennedy,
Clarence
70.
Thomas. I'm not sure how old he is.
He's 67.
67. So up there, but not too old. Not too bad.
So I mean, so you got like 3 people who could, be on their way out in the next 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Very easily.
So, right. So this is a big deal because we've been kind of lucky that the last 20-ish years we've had a court where you have 4 conservative-leaning judges, 4 liberal-leaning judges, then you have Anthony Kennedy, who's like the swing vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been pretty lucky that that's been the case, and no one's really upset that balance.
There hasn't been a situation where it would be upset.
Right. Until now. Right. And because Bernie Sanders is so left, if he's president, he's going to appoint some incredibly left-wing justices, which is not good.
But I feel like anyone's going to do that. The
Exactly.
Republicans are going to be just as bad at appointing conservative justices.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't trust anyone who's left to appoint justices that match the ideology of the one that they're replacing to keep the balance.
And that includes our current president, Mr. Obama. I do not trust him either. But see, here's the thing with this. And this is kind of the idea of the Supreme Court, in that justices serve for life or until they decide that they want to just go to Florida and retire.
Right.
Like every other old person. So what happens is you have these justices serving for life, and I feel like that's kind of, a lot of people argue that that's not a good thing, that you don't want people serving for life, that is, in a democracy, you don't want that sort of power. That's almost too powerful. I disagree. I feel like this is a topic for another day, but I'm not totally convinced of all of the merits of democracy, and I feel like having that sort of Aristotelian is not the word,
Aristotelian, I think that aristocratic.
No, yes. Aristocratic. Aristotelian is Aristotle.
Right.
Aristocratic position, such as Supreme Court Justice, balances and actually makes it better, because you guarantee then that that justice is going to outlive or not necessarily outlive, but surpass their predecessor in terms of roles, time spent serving in the government.
Right.
So, and I think that's beneficial in that, we even if so let's say obviously it is good for the Democrats, but let's say the positions were reversed, where a liberal justice passed away and we had a Republican as president. Then obviously a conservative would put in, and then even if the Republicans lose this next election, that conservatism is still on the bench, so they surpass the election in a way,
yes.
keeping it more towards the middle, keeping the government itself more towards the middle. And you have exactly the opposite here, I feel like, is likely, where Obama will appoint a liberal justice, upset the balance of the Supreme Court, but now whether the Republicans or the Democrats win this election, that is there, and that's almost a good thing. I would like it to be balanced. That's obviously ideal. What you want is the 4 liberals, 4 conservatives, 1 centrist. Quite honestly, we want 9 centrists, but if we're gonna pick and choose,
let's be real.
Let's be realistic here. So, I almost feel like it's okay. Like it's not the ideal situation, having Antonin Scalia die at this exact moment. But I feel like that's just the way it is. And what I saw today on the news was, all the Republicans, Ted Cruz is leading this charge of it would be an abomination for Obama to appoint someone at this point in their time. I don't feel like that's necessarily true. When a justice dies on the bench, they're replaced as soon as possible. We can't wait a whole year for the next president to be inaugurated to replace a Supreme Court justice. It doesn't work like that,
Well, I mean, but in 68, I lied. In 67, LBJ was about to appoint a new justice, but the Senate Republicans were like, no, because you're almost done, so no, you're not doing it, and he just didn't do it. And they went without a justice for 17 months, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, and I feel
so
like
it's been done before.
It's been done before, so there is a precedent there, but I still feel like that's kind of cheating, I feel like it's kind of breaking the rules of the game. Not breaking the rules, but you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of not the point of having people serve for life.
When Reagan tried to appoint Robert Bork, the same thing happened. The Democrats were like, absolutely no way, we're just going to vote this guy down, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and that's what the Republicans will continue to do, just keep voting people down until
but the Democrats did that, is what I'm saying.
Yes,
the Democrats did that to Robert Bork.
Yeah, no, and that's what the Republicans are going to do now.
We'll do now, exactly. Everyone does it, and everyone is guilty of doing it.
Yes, exactly. What I'm saying is that no one should do it. Just let the president appoint someone so we can have 9 justices on the Supreme Court.
Well, I mean, they still have to be approved. And if we appoint some left-wing lunatic, then the Senate shouldn't appoint him.
That's the problem. It'll never happen. Like, that's kind of my quarrel right now, is that even though I know what should happen, I think we all kind of think that Obama should do the right thing and appoint someone. That he's not going to appoint a conservative, so let's just throw that idea out. But he should appoint someone at least centrist. Center-lean left is fine,
No, it's only because it was Scalia who was absolutely not a center or a leftist.
Yes.
Like, that's just, if you appoint oh my God, he should appoint a moderate conservative. He should have.
I agree. Well,
Scalia
was a moderate.
I know, but because Obama is not
because of his position. Okay.
Right. He can compromise and grow a pair and be an adult and realize that I can't get everything I want because I am not super special and I did not heal the planet and heal the oceans, and I'm really going on a tangent because I can't stand this man. But Scalia was a strict constitutionalist, so the least you could do to not upset the makeup of the court is to appoint a moderate conservative.
Yes.
Like Sandra Day O'Connor was a moderate conservative justice, and by the end of her tenure, she was considered a swing vote along with Anthony Kennedy. So there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's just you get put in as conservative, and then the country moves to the left, so you become, you move with the currents of the country as far as ideology goes.
So this dude needs to just not appoint some moron and actually take into account what this actually means. Because if he appoints some left-wing lunatic, and I'm sorry to keep using the words left-wing lunatic, but I'm
That's okay.
having a rough week, so I don't care. If he appoints some left-wing lunatic, then if the next president is not Bernie Sanders / Hillary Clinton, and then there are 2 or 3 more vacancies, then the Republicans are just going to go, haha, you tried to do this to us, and now we're going to do it to you 3 times. And then the Supreme Court is going to be so to the right.
Which we also don't want.
Which you also don't want, because that's not democracy, right?
Right.
But, I mean, so he's got to be really careful here, because, I mean, Bernie Sanders will probably be crushed in the general election if he goes up against Rubio. Because Rubio has the millennial appeal that Ted Cruz does not.
Yes. I think we should actually, when we're done talking about the justices, to end the episode, we'll do a quick lineup of who can beat who in the general election.
Okay, so anyway.
Yes.
So both sides really need to consider, do we really want to mess up the ideological balance that we have right now? And I think Obama really needs to consider that, because, he's trying to find something that he can have a legacy on.
And this could very easily make or break it.
Right.
If he does the right thing here and appoints center right is all we need.
Yes,
we don't need just extreme conservative. We just need center right.
Yeah.
Even I'll just take center. Honestly.
Compromise. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he won't do that.
Right. No, he won't do it. He's not.
And the Republicans will never approve. I feel like
anyone who's not at least centrist.
Yeah, I feel like even then the Republicans probably would be hard nosers about it.
They'll probably vote down a centrist. Yes,
I agree.
But then at least Obama did the right thing.
Exactly, and then we can at least yell. We can yell at the Republicans and say, "You guys screwed up. This is your fault."
Exactly. But right now, it's Obama's fault. So is the Ice Age and the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's his fault too.
Yes. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah.
So that's that. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's only been 2 days that Scalia's dead. He's not even in the ground yet. So let's wait and see what happens. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, agreed. I see on, and I know I'm not trying to be too ideological here, but I see, the New York Times and CNN are like, oh yeah, he was so philosophically steadfast in his belief of hold on, what I see in the memorial pages for him is and I'm going to paraphrase, his staunch and consistent advocacy for originalist methods of legal interpretation, right? So the philosophy that a philosophy that means that a law's meaning does not change over time and should be interpreted as a reasonable person would understand the text at the time it was passed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? That was his shtick. That was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what is so radical about advocating for things meaning what they originally meant? Do you understand what I'm saying?
What kind of...
How is that philosophy?
Well, who wrote this article?
Oh, no, I'm paraphrasing. This is what I've seen.
Oh, okay, but just from across the board?
All across the internet.
Because it seems to me like we can have an actual debate as to whether or not that's how you want to interpret laws, and specifically the Constitution. But I think that, in general, people are just trying to write obituaries and say nice things about him. And so his steadfast commitment to how the law should be interpreted is it's a nice thing. It sounds friendly. Just
to me, his viewpoint is just common sense. And that will get...
Oh, yes. No, so I disagree with you on that, but that's for a different episode.
So, yeah, exactly.
And that's why you're seeing this on Facebook.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So now we'll wrap it up with the matchups, hypothetical matchups.
I think that's a good idea. So let's pull up... I'm going to pull up again the hypothetical matchups. That's not the right one. Here we go. So... to recap, we have remaining for the Democrats are Bernie and Hillary, and remaining for the Republicans we have Jeb Bush, Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, John Kasich, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump. So let's say Hillary's the nominee. I don't see any of these people beating Hillary in a general election, to be honest.
I think Marco Rubio could beat Hillary in the general election for sure. He's everything that she's not.
I don't know. I don't know if I see it. I think Kasich could actually. I think Kasich could
I
put
don't
up a
think
fight
he
against
could.
Hillary. I think
An
that
old
once.
middle-aged white dude, he's not going to do it.
Well, here's the thing: Kasich can never get to. He can never get to the point to be the Republican nominee. Once he got there, though, I think he could totally beat Hillary. A centrist Republican governor. He has the entire support of the Republicans because they're not going to vote for Hillary. That's for sure. And then he can also draw in that middle crowd. You know, those middle center of the road people, those centrists. You know.
Maybe. I'll give you a maybe.
Okay.
I'll give you a maybe.
I think against Hillary, Jeb Bush is out, Ben Carson is out, Ted Cruz is out, Donald Trump is out.
Right.
So our chances against Hillary are Rubio and maybe Kasich.
Yes.
Now, for Bernie, this is where it gets interesting. Who do we got against Bernie?
I think. Well, hold on. I'm pulling up some numbers. Hold on.
Okay. Just looking at them now and not having any numbers in front of me, it seems to me like the only people who could be, I shouldn't say the only people, the people who would lose to Bernie are Donald Trump, Ted Cruz,
Ben Carson
would lose,
Jeb Bush.
and Jeb Bush would lose. So again,
Yes.
we're left with Rubio and Kasich. And I think Kasich would lose as well then.
Yes.
Okay. So there you have it then. That's our... So basically, unless our nominee is Rubio or maybe Kasich, the Democrats are going to win. But here is my ideal scenario, and it is the secret option 3, where...
Ayo, secret option E, baby, all the above.
No, we do not want multiple presidents. That would be bad.
I know. That'd be bad. And illegal.
And illegal. But my ideal scenario is actually if former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, has said that if Bernie Sanders wins the Democratic nomination, he will also run for president as an independent.
Okay, good. So he'll take away some of his votes, right?
I think he'll take votes from both, to be honest.
That's fine.
Fiscal conservative, socially
Is he,
liberal.
though? Is he fiscally conservative, Billy?
Well, let's first lay out the fact that I'm a big fan of Michael Bloomberg, and I think that he did a great job running the city of New York.
He was very good for running the city of New York.
He was an excellent mayor of New York. Much better, probably on par with Rudy Giuliani, I would say.
And Ed Koch.
And definitely better than the guy we currently have in there, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
De Blasio.
Yes, Bill de Blasio.
Yeah, that guy.
Certainly.
Oh, boy.
Michael Bloomberg was certainly better than de Blasio. Anyway, the reason that Michael Bloomberg appeals to me so much is because he has that sort of not fully establishment position the way Trump and Sanders do. And I like what he stands for. I like his more fiscal conservatism a bit, but also willing to spend where spending needs to happen. I like his social liberalism because that's something that I agree with. And I think that he could beat... Well, honestly, I think that he could beat Sanders and any of the Republicans, especially if the Republicans are Trump. You know, I think if it ends up being Bernie Sanders, Michael Bloomberg in the middle, and then Donald Trump at the end, I don't see a scenario there where Bloomberg loses. I think he has it in the bag at that point. I think the only scenario then where if Bernie wins, because it's essentially guaranteed that if Bernie wins, Bloomberg is in. That's basically what he said. And if Hillary wins, he's out because he doesn't think he can beat Hillary, and I think he's correct on that.
Yeah.
But so let's put in Bloomberg with Bernie and pretty much any of them. I think he beats almost all of them except for maybe Rubio. Yeah, I think Rubio is the only one that maybe has a chance then against either Bloomberg or Sanders.
All right, here I got some numbers for you. You ready?
Okay, yeah. Let me hear the numbers.
So this is polling data from Quinnipiac, NBC, Wall Street Journal. They do a poll together. What is PPP?
I don't know.
Hold on, sir. Oh, publicpolicypolling.com. Okay.
Okay.
So these are 4 different polls conducted to see what the hypothetical matchup between Rubio and Clinton would look like.
Mm-hmm.
So Quinnipiac has Rubio winning 48 to 41.
I'm sorry,
The
could you repeat
public
that again?
Quinnipiac has Rubio winning the general election versus Hillary Clinton 48 to 41.
What does that mean, 48 to 41? As far as
48% to 41%.
really, where's the other?
Yes.
Where's
I'm
the
going to go
rest?
down the list.
Okay, sorry.
The policy for public polling, or the Public Polling Policy Center, whatever, the PPP, has Rubio winning 46 to 44. NBC News Wall Street Journal has Rubio losing 47 to 46. And Fox News has Rubio winning 50 to 41. So we can't go with Fox News, but
No, we can't go with Fox News.
the
That's
other
for sure.
three, the other three are very credible,
Uh-huh.
especially Quinnipiac and the PPP.
Yes, I think those are probably your most credible sources there.
And they both have Rubio winning, and the Real Clear Politics average is Rubio winning 47.5 to 43.3.
Okay.
So, and these polls were done. These polls were done this past week.
Okay. Excellent.
So this is very recent.
Yeah, these are very accurate. These are very up to date.
So
I
if
don't
it's
know if accurate
Rubio,
is that word.
right? If it's Rubio Hillary, Rubio wins. I really think that will be the case because Rubio is young, has energy, and he's intelligent. So he appeals to millennials, he appeals to the middle of the road people, and he's not a schmuck. And Hillary
Yes, that's
Clinton
true.
is evil.
He's not a schmuck, and Hillary Clinton is evil.
We haven't said the words Hillary Clinton is evil enough in this episode.
Because we had a whole segment where we talked about how no politician is evil, they just have different views.
Right. Next episode, we're going to talk about how Hillary Clinton is evil.
Next episode, we're going to negate everything we said here about bipartisanship.
Yes. Exactly.
Exactly.
So anyway, so it's clear Rubio can beat Hillary. I think if he goes up against Sanders, in the beginning it might seem like Sanders might catch up to him, but I think over time the independents will realize how insane Bernie Sanders' economics is.
Yeah.
And I have great
because he's like Trump, he doesn't explain anything. He just says we're going to do that.
I have great information for the next episode about how even center left economists looked at Bernie's plans and are like, how did you come up with this? This makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if it is Marco versus Bernie, I think Bernie will lose.
But don't rule out. Yes, I think Bernie loses, but don't rule out there Mr. Bloomberg.
But he's not going to run.
I think he does. I think he totally. Look, if Hillary loses the Democratic nomination, I think Michael Bloomberg totally runs. Because he clearly sees how bad of an idea Bernie Sanders is. He knows the economics doesn't work there.
Right.
He knows it's not possible. I think he totally runs.
I mean, why did Rudy Giuliani not get the nomination in 2008? Because in New York and the Northeast, a mayor from New York City is awesome, but the rest of the country looks at New York City and it's like, ew.
You're right, but I don't know if... See,
because in New York, question mark. I feel New York, there's no excuses. Like, you gotta do what you gotta do, and if you don't have the things, if you don't have the resources, you're supposed to get the resources. If you're supposed to do it, you're supposed to do it, and there's no excuses because that's how New York is. Yes. But the rest of the country looks at that and it's like, oh, we don't want to be told what to do and push around like that.
Unless it's Donald Trump,
right? Exactly.
Who is a New Yorker.
Right, exactly, but Donald Trump isn't a real, I know we're gonna have a philosophical debate about who a real New Yorker is, but
well, I mean, the Republicans basically did it 2 weeks ago when they talked about who real America is. New York isn't real America.
Right.
It's just the silliest thing ever. If we want to go back very briefly, because I don't want to spend too long on that, to the Trump Sanders comparison, they're both New Yorkers. They're actually both from Brooklyn.
True.
It's just very interesting, the two of them. It's kind of funny.
What a time to be alive.
What a time. So that's my prediction anyway. You have... That's not the link I wanted. I think that we get Bernie... My ideal scenario is honestly Bernie, Trump, and Michael Bloomberg. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people, even if you don't necessarily like the idea of a New Yorker as president, or you don't want like a mayor of New York, you're running against Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. You got to do
I
pretty
still
well
don't think
there.
he's gonna win.
I'm not entirely convinced he won't. He did just win New Hampshire by a fairly large margin.
Who is this?
Trump.
Oh no, I thought we were talking about. You just said your ideal situation was Trump, Sanders, and Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, because
So
then
I don't
Bloomberg
think
wins.
Bloomberg does not win that matchup.
Oh, really? I think he
No,
totally does.
no,
Oh, I think absolutely.
no. I highly doubt that.
No.
It would be nice, but
I
I just don't think that's the case.
okay. I don't have the numbers with me right now, but next
Okay.
episode we're going to do follow-up. And follow-up
Okay.
is going to entail, first and foremost, I want to see
Michael Bloomberg.
In the polls, see if he has a chance. I want to
Okay.
see how this plays out.
Okay.
Okay.
We can do that. We can do such a thing.
I think that's a good idea. In the meantime, we have been recording for roughly an hour and a half. Or an hour and 20 minutes. That's not long. I mean, I'm editing a lot of stuff out, so I'm thinking this podcast is going to be roughly an hour long, give or take.
Work.
Probably a little bit more than an hour. But still,
Sounds
this was good. I think
Yes,
there's
very
a lot,
good.
This is good. I'm going to stop recording right now, and I'll edit